Stop chasing abundance. That's why you don't have it. For one night, I'm going to share something with you that will completely flip how you think about wealth, success, and everything you've been trying so hard to get. And by the end, you'll understand why your current approach is keeping you stuck. Most people think abundance is something external, something you need to chase, grab, and hold on to. They work harder, hustle more, and stress themselves into exhaustion. But here's what nobody tells you. Abundance isn't attracted through force. It's activated through understanding. And tonight you're going to discover exactly how to flip that switch inside you. This isn't about motivational fluff or empty promises. This is about rewiring the way you see the world and your place in it. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to have everything flow to them naturally, while others, no matter how hard they work, keep hitting walls? It's frustrating, right? You put in the hours, you follow the steps, you do what everyone says you should do, but the results just don't match the effort. And the worst part, you start blaming yourself. You think, maybe you're not talented enough, not smart enough, not deserving enough. So you push harder, you force things, you try to control every outcome. But the more you grip, the more everything slips through your fingers. Here's the real problem. You've been taught that abundance comes from doing more, but that's backwards. True abundance doesn't come from adding more effort. It comes from removing the mental blocks that are stopping the natural flow. Think about it like this. Imagine a river. When a river flows freely, it nourishes everything in its path. But when you put rocks and debris in that river, the water gets stuck. It stagnates. Nothing grows. Your mind works the same way. When you're filled with doubt, fear, and resistance, abundance can't reach you, not because you don't deserve it, but because you've blocked the path. Most people spend their entire lives adding more rocks to their river. They worry about not having enough. They stress about what others think. They hold on to past failures like trophies of limitation. And then they wonder why nothing changes. The shift happens when you stop trying to force the river to flow and start removing the obstacles that are in the way. That's what this message is about. Not giving you more things to do, but helping you see what you need to stop doing. The illusion of scarcity. Let's start with the biggest lie you've been told. The lie that there's not enough money, not enough opportunities, not enough success to go around. This belief is poison, and it's running in the background of your mind every single day, making every decision harder than it needs to be. When you believe in scarcity, you operate from fear. You hoard instead of share. You compete instead of collaborate. You see other people's success as a threat to your own. This mindset doesn't just block abundance. It actively pushes it away. Because abundance doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to alignment. And when you're desperate, you're out of alignment with everything that could actually help you. Think about nature for a second. Does a tree worry about whether there's enough sunlight? Does a bird stress about finding food tomorrow? No. They exist in harmony with the natural flow. They take what they need when they need it. And nature always provides, not because they're lucky, but because they're not resisting the process. They're not second-guessing themselves. They're not lying awake at night, wondering if they're good enough or if there's enough to go around. Now, I'm not saying you should sit around and do nothing. That's not how this works. But there's a massive difference between acting from trust and acting from fear. When you act from fear, your decisions are reactive. You grab at opportunities that aren't right for you. You say yes to things that drain you. You settle because you think this might be your only chance. You take the job that pays well but makes you miserable. You stay in relationships that stopped serving you years ago. You build a life based on what you can get, not what you actually want. But when you act from trust, you move differently. You're selective, you're patient, you recognize that the right things will come at the right time. And ironically, that's when everything starts showing up faster. Not because you're sitting back doing nothing, but because you're no longer wasting energy on things that were never meant for you. You're creating space for what actually belongs in your life. Here's a simple test to see where you're operating from. When you see someone else succeed, what's your first reaction? If it's jealousy or comparison, you're in scarcity mode. You're thinking their win somehow takes away from your chances. You're measuring yourself against them and coming up short. You're wondering why they got it and you didn't. But if your first reaction is inspiration or curiosity, you're in abundance mode. You see their success as proof that success is possible. You get curious about their path. You celebrate with them because you know there's plenty to go around. The universe has infinite resources, infinite opportunities, infinite paths to success. But you'll only see them when you stop believing you're in competition with everyone else. Because competition narrows your vision. It makes you focus on beating others instead of becoming better. It makes you see the world as a zero-sum game where someone has to lose for you to win. And that's just not true. Scarcity makes you small. It makes you play defense. It makes you hold back your gifts because you're afraid someone will steal your ideas. You don't share what you know because you think keeping secrets gives you an edge. You don't help others because you're worried they'll surpass you. You build walls instead of bridges. And those walls don't just keep others out. They keep you trapped inside. But abundance makes you expansive. It makes you share freely. It makes you realize that the more you give, the more comes back, not in some mystical, magical way, but because generosity creates connections, and connections create opportunities. That's how the flow works. When you help someone, they remember. When you share your knowledge, you become known for it. When you celebrate others, they want you around. You become a person that good things happen to and with. Not because you're lucky, but because you've created an environment where good things can grow. Think about the most successful people you know personally, or have read about. The ones with real lasting success. Not just a quick win. They're almost always generous. They share their insights. They help others rise. They're not worried about competition because they understand something crucial. There is no competition. Everyone's path is unique. Your journey can't be replicated because nobody else is you. Nobody else has your exact combination of skills, experiences, perspectives, and timing. So the first step to activating abundance is recognizing this illusion. Every time you catch yourself thinking there's not enough, pause, remind yourself that you live in an abundant universe, and then watch how your decisions start to change. You'll stop forcing, you'll stop grasping, and you'll start attracting. Not because you're using some secret technique, but because you've removed the biggest block that was in your way. The belief that you have to fight for scraps when there's actually a feast available. This shift doesn't happen overnight. You've probably been programmed with scarcity thinking since childhood. Your parents worried about money. Teachers told you only the top students would succeed. Society showed you that resources are limited. So be patient with yourself as you unlearn these patterns. But start today. Start noticing when scarcity thoughts show up and gently replace them with abundance thinking, not as fake positivity, but as truth. Because abundance is the truth. Scarcity is the illusion we've all agreed to believe. The power of inner stillness. Now let's talk about something most people completely overlook. Your internal state creates your external reality, not in a wishful thinking kind of way, but in a very practical sense. When your mind is chaotic, your life becomes chaotic. When your mind is calm, opportunities become clear. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending everything is perfect. This is about understanding that the quality of your inner world directly affects the quality of your outer world. Most people are running on autopilot. They wake up, check their phones, fill their minds with noise, and then wonder why they feel scattered all day. They're constantly reacting, constantly distracted, constantly pulled in 1,000 directions. And in that state, they miss everything. The subtle signals, the quiet nudges, the perfect timing. They're so busy running that they can't see the doors opening right in front of them. Abundance speaks in whispers, not shouts. It shows up in moments of clarity, in gut feelings, in sudden insights. But you can't hear any of that when your mind sounds like a crowded marketplace. That's why stillness is so powerful, not meditation for the sake of relaxation, but stillness as a practice of tuning in. It's like turning down the static so you can hear the actual signal, and that signal is always there. You're just usually too noisy to notice it. Here's what happens when you cultivate inner stillness. First, you stop wasting energy. Think about how much mental energy you burn every day, worrying about things that never happen, replaying conversations that are already over, stressing about problems you can't control, planning for scenarios that will never come to pass. All of that is energy that could be used to create, connect, and grow. When you're still, that energy gets redirected. You become more focused, more productive, more effective. Not because you're doing more, but because you're wasting less. Second, you start seeing opportunities that were always there. Have you ever noticed how you suddenly see a certain car everywhere after you decide you want it? It's not that more of those cars appeared, your brain just started filtering for it. The same thing happens with opportunities. When your mind is calm and clear, you notice things you were blind to before. A conversation that leads to a partnership, a book that gives you the exact answer you needed, a random encounter that changes everything. These things were always happening around you. You just couldn't see them through all the mental clutter. Third, you make better decisions. When you're stressed and rushing, you make reactive choices. You take the first option because you're desperate. You say yes when you should say no. You invest in things that look shiny but have no substance. But when you're centered, you can evaluate clearly. You can feel whether something is aligned or not. You can say no to things that look good but feel wrong. And that discernment is everything. One good decision made from stillness is worth more than 100 frantic actions made from chaos. People think abundance means having more, but often it means doing less chasing, less forcing, less noise. When you strip away the unnecessary, what's left is what matters. And that's when things start flowing naturally. You're not swimming upstream anymore. You're moving with the current. You're working with life instead of against it. And that shift in approach changes everything. So, how do you build this stillness? It's simple, but not easy. You create space in your day, even just 5 minutes in the morning before you reach for your phone. Sit quietly, breathe, let your mind settle like dirt in a jar of water. Don't try to force thoughts away. Just observe them without attaching. Watch them come and go like clouds passing through the sky. This isn't about becoming a monk or escaping reality. It's about training your mind to be present, because presence is where power lives. Presence is where abundance flows. Most people spend their entire lives either in the past or the future, regretting what happened or worrying about what might happen. But abundance only exists in the present moment, because the present is the only place where you can actually take action, the only place where you can make choices, the only place where life is actually happening. Everything else is just a story you're telling yourself. When you practice stillness regularly, something interesting happens. You start noticing patterns you couldn't see before. You realize that most of your stress comes from imagined scenarios, not real problems. You see how much time you waste on things that don't matter. You become aware of habits that are holding you back, and with that awareness comes the power to change, not through force or willpower, but through simple recognition. Once you see something clearly, it naturally begins to shift. This is why the most successful people often have some kind of stillness practice, not because they're spiritual or trying to be Zen, but because they understand that clarity is a competitive advantage. When everyone else is reacting emotionally and making fear-based decisions, they can see clearly and act wisely. When everyone else is drowning in information overload, they can cut through the noise and focus on what matters. That's the power of inner stillness. It's not passive, it's not weak, it's the most active, powerful thing you can do. Releasing attachment to outcomes. Here's where most people get stuck. They set a goal, work toward it, and then grip so tightly that they strangle any possibility of it happening. They become obsessed with the how and the when, and that obsession creates resistance. It's like trying to force a flower to bloom faster by pulling on its petals. You don't help the process, you destroy it. Let me be clear, having goals is important, vision is important, but attachment to specific outcomes is a trap, because life doesn't unfold the way you plan. It unfolds the way it needs to. And when you're too attached to your version of how things should happen, you miss the opportunities that are actually showing up. You're so focused on door number 1 that you don't see door number 2 opening behind you. And sometimes door number 2 leads somewhere better than you ever imagined. Think about it like holding water in your hand. If you keep your hand open and relaxed, the water stays, but the moment you squeeze, trying to hold on tighter, it slips through your fingers. That's what attachment does. It creates desperation, and desperation repels abundance. People can feel it, opportunities can sense it. It's like a bad smell that follows you around, warning everything good to stay away. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care without clinging. You put in the work without needing immediate results. You plant seeds, knowing that growth takes time. And you trust that if something doesn't work out the way you expected, it's because something better is coming. That mindset shift is massive. It transforms failure from a dead end into a redirection. It turns disappointment into curiosity. It makes you flexible instead of brittle. When you release attachment, you create space for surprise, for serendipity, for things you never could have planned. Some of the best things in life happen when you stop trying to control every detail. A career opportunity you didn't apply for, a relationship that started as a random conversation, an idea that came when you finally stopped searching for it. These moments of magic can't be forced, they can only be allowed. But releasing attachment requires trust. And trust is hard when you've been let down before, when you've worked hard and seen nothing come from it, when you've hoped and been disappointed. I get it, but here's the thing, your past doesn't define your future unless you let it. Every moment is a new opportunity to approach things differently. Every moment is a chance to choose trust over fear. Start by asking yourself this: what am I trying to control that I actually can't control? Write it down, look at it, and then consciously choose to let it go, not in a passive giving up kind of way, but in an empowered, trusting kind of way. You do your part, and then you release the outcome to the flow of life. You trust that the universe or life or whatever you want to call it has a bigger picture that you can't see from where you're standing. This is especially important when it comes to money and success. People get so attached to specific numbers, timelines, and definitions of what success should look like. They think they need to make a certain amount by a certain age, or they failed. They think success has to look a specific way, or it doesn't count. But abundance doesn't always show up as you expect. Sometimes it comes as an unexpected check. Sometimes it's a connection that leads to something bigger. Sometimes it's a lesson that redirects you to your true path. When you release the how, you open yourself to infinite possibilities. Think about the stories you've heard of people who lost everything and then found their real purpose, or people who got rejected from their dream job and ended up somewhere better, or people who had their plans fall apart only to discover they were heading in the wrong direction anyway. These stories are everywhere because they're true. Life has a way of course correcting when we're headed somewhere that isn't right for us, but we have to be willing to let go of our rigid plans to receive what's actually meant for us. Releasing attachment doesn't mean you become passive or stop trying. It means you stay flexible, you hold your goals lightly, you work hard but don't white-knuckle the results. You give your best effort and then trust the process. And in that space between effort and surrender, that's where abundance lives. That's where flow happens. That's where you stop fighting life and start dancing with it, aligning your actions with your values. Now let's talk about alignment, because you can do all the inner work in the world, but if your actions don't match who you are, nothing will feel abundant. You'll have money, but no peace. Success, but no fulfillment. Recognition, but no satisfaction. You'll look good on paper, but feel hollow inside. And that emptiness will eat at you no matter how much you accomplish or acquire. True abundance isn't just about having more. It's about having what actually matters to you, and that requires knowing your values. Most people never stop to ask themselves what they truly value. They chase what society tells them to chase. The big house, the fancy car, the impressive title, the lifestyle they see on social media. And then they get there and feel empty. They look around at everything they've built and wonder why it doesn't feel the way they thought it would. Why success feels more like pressure than freedom. Why achievement feels more like obligation than celebration. Your values are your compass. They tell you what decisions to make, what opportunities to say yes to, what relationships to invest in. When your actions align with your values, life feels effortless. Not easy, but effortless. There's flow, there's energy, there's meaning. You wake up excited about your day. You go to bed satisfied with how you spent your time. You feel like you're moving in the right direction, even when things are hard. But when you're out of alignment, everything feels like a struggle. You're constantly swimming against the current. You're exhausted but can't point to anything meaningful you've accomplished. You're busy but not fulfilled. You're successful by other people's standards but miserable by your own. So, how do you find alignment? Start by getting honest with yourself. What do you actually care about? Not what you think you should care about. Not what your parents wanted for you. Not what looks impressive to others. What lights you up? What makes you feel alive? What do you want your life to stand for? If you could design your perfect day without worrying about money or what anyone thinks, what would it look like? Who would you be with? What would you be doing? How would you be spending your energy? Write it down, get specific, and then look at how you're spending your time and energy right now. Does it match? Most people find a huge gap. They value family but work 80 hours a week and barely see their kids. They value health but eat garbage and skip exercise because they're too stressed. They value creativity but spend all their time on tasks that drain them because that's what pays the bills. They value freedom but build a life that traps them in obligations and expectations. And that gap creates inner conflict. It creates stress. It blocks abundance because you're constantly fighting yourself. Think about it like this. Imagine you're driving a car, but half of you wants to go north and the other half wants to go south. You're pressing the gas and the brake at the same time. What happens? You go nowhere. You burn fuel. You wear out the car. You get frustrated. That's what living out of alignment does to you. It drains your energy fighting internal battles that don't need to exist. Closing that gap is where the magic happens. When you start making decisions based on your values, everything shifts. You stop doing things out of obligation. You stop saying yes to opportunities that look good but feel wrong. You stop chasing other people's definitions of success. You start building a life that actually feels good, and that energy attracts more of what you truly want. Not because you're manifesting or using some secret technique, but because you're finally coherent. Your inner world matches your outer world. Your words match your actions. Your goals match your values. This doesn't mean you quit your job tomorrow or blow up your life. It means you start making small shifts toward alignment. Maybe you can't leave your job right now, but you can set boundaries around your time. You can say no to extra projects that don't serve you. You can use your lunch break to do something that lights you up instead of scrolling your phone. Maybe you can't travel the world, but you can explore your own city like a tourist. You can bring more adventure into your weekends. You can schedule the things that matter instead of just fitting them in. If there's time left over, start asking yourself before you say yes to anything. Does this align with my values? Does this move me toward the life I actually want, or away from it? Does this energize me or drain me? And be honest, some things that drain you are necessary. You still have to pay bills. You still have responsibilities. But a lot of what drains you isn't necessary. It's just habit. It's just fear. It's just what you think you're supposed to do. The people who live abundant lives aren't the ones with the most money or the biggest achievements. They're the ones whose lives reflect what they actually care about. They've made the hard choices to align their actions with their values. They've said no to things that would impress others, but drain them. They've said yes to things that might look small, but fill them up. They've built lives that feel good from the inside, not just look good from the outside. And that internal satisfaction creates a magnetic quality. People want to be around them. Opportunities find them. Abundance flows to them. Because they're not conflicted, they're clear, they're aligned, they're whole. So take some time today or tonight, get clear on your values. Write them down. Look at the gap between your values and your current life, and then commit to closing that gap one decision at a time. That's where real abundance lives. Not in having more, but in having what matters. Gratitude as the gateway to more. Let's end with the simplest but most powerful tool you have. Gratitude, not the fake forced kind, where you pretend everything is perfect, but real gratitude for what's already here. Because here's the truth. You can't attract more if you don't appreciate what you have. Abundance builds on appreciation. It doesn't show up to fill a void. It shows up to expand what's already recognized and valued. When you focus on what's missing, your brain filters for lack. You see problems everywhere. You notice what everyone else has that you don't. You scroll through social media and feel behind. You look at your life and only see the gaps, the things you haven't accomplished yet, the money you don't have, the relationships that didn't work out, the opportunities you missed, and that feeling of lack becomes your reality. Not because you actually lack anything, but because that's all you're training your brain to see. But when you focus on what's already good, your brain filters for more good. You notice the small wins, the unexpected blessings, the things that are working. You start seeing opportunities you were blind to before. You appreciate the people in your life. Instead of taking them for granted, you recognize how far you've come, instead of only measuring how far you have to go. And that feeling of fullness becomes your reality. Not because your circumstances changed, but because your perception changed. Gratitude isn't about ignoring your challenges. It's about not letting your challenges define your entire experience. You can want more and be grateful for what is at the same time. In fact, that's the sweet spot. That's where abundance activates, because you are not operating from desperation. You're operating from overflow. You're not trying to fill a hole. You're trying to expand what's already good. And there's a completely different energy to that. Think about it from a relationship perspective. If someone only focused on what you're not doing for them, how would that feel? If every conversation was about what's missing or what's wrong, would you want to be around that person? Probably not. But if someone genuinely appreciated what you do bring, if they noticed and acknowledged the good, you'd probably want to give them even more. That's how abundance works too. When you appreciate what you have, more shows up. Not because the universe is rewarding you, but because you're finally in the right state to receive it. Most people have this backwards. They think they'll be grateful once they get what they want. Once they hit their financial goal, then they'll appreciate their money. Once they find the perfect relationship, then they'll be grateful for love. Once they achieve success, then they'll celebrate. But it doesn't work that way. Gratitude isn't the result of abundance. It's the cause. It's the foundation that abundance builds on. Start tonight, before you sleep. Think of 3 specific things you're grateful for, not generic things like health or family. Specific moments. A conversation that made you smile, a problem you solved, a lesson you learned. Maybe it's the way the sunlight came through your window this morning. Maybe it's a text from a friend who checked in on you. Maybe it's the fact that you have clean water to drink and a bed to sleep in. Things you usually overlook because they're always there. Feel it. Let it sink in. Don't just think about it. Actually feel the appreciation in your body. Let it warm your chest. Let it soften your face. Let it remind you that even on hard days there's good present. and watch how your perspective starts to shift. This one practice, done consistently, will change everything, because you'll stop waiting for abundance to arrive and start recognizing it's already here. Here's what happens when you make gratitude a daily practice. First, you become more present. You can't be grateful for something if you're not paying attention to it. So gratitude forces you out of autopilot and into awareness. And presence is where life actually happens. Second, you build resilience. When hard things happen, and they will, you have a foundation of good to stand on. You don't spiral into total despair, because you can still see what's working, even when other things aren't. Third, you become someone people want to be around. Grateful people are magnetic. They're not complaining all the time. They're not draining. They notice and appreciate others, which makes everyone feel good. But here's the deeper truth about gratitude. It's not just about feeling good, although that's a nice bonus. It's about seeing reality clearly. When you're in lack mode, you're literally blind to half of what's happening. Your brain filters out the good to focus on the threats and problems. That made sense when we were cavemen trying to survive, but it doesn't serve you now. Gratitude retrains your brain to see the full picture, the challenges and the blessings, the problems and the opportunities, the pain and the growth. You're not ignoring reality with gratitude. You're seeing reality more completely, because the truth is, your life is full of both good and bad, both abundance and dark, both success and failure, both joy and pain. When you only focus on one side, you're living in a distorted version of reality. Gratitude brings you back to balance. It helps you see that yes, things are hard, but also things are good. Yes, you have challenges, but also you have resources. Yes, you want more, but also you have enough right now in this moment. And from that place of enough, you can build anything. From that place of appreciation, you can create more. From that place of gratitude, abundance flows naturally, not because you're tricking the universe, but because you finally removed the biggest block, the belief that you have nothing worth appreciating, the belief that your life doesn't count until it looks a certain way, the belief that you need more before you can be grateful. Start tonight, make it a practice, and watch how everything changes. Not all at once, but slowly, steadily, surely, one grateful moment at a time. So let's bring this all together. Abundance isn't something you chase. It's something you activate from within. And it starts with 5 shifts. First, rejecting the illusion of scarcity and recognizing that there's more than enough for everyone. Second, cultivating inner stillness so you can hear the whispers of opportunity. Third, releasing attachment to outcomes and trusting the flow of life. Fourth, aligning your actions with your values so your life feels meaningful. And fifth, practicing gratitude for what's already here. These aren't just ideas, they're practices, and practices require repetition. You won't master this in one night, but if you listen to this message and truly absorb it, something inside you will shift. You'll start seeing things differently, acting differently, attracting differently. The abundance you've been chasing will start showing up naturally, because you finally removed the blocks that were in the way. Remember, the river was always flowing. You just had to stop putting rocks in it. So tonight, as you rest, let this message sink in. Let it rewire your beliefs. Let it remind you that you are not separate from abundance. You are a part of it. And when you align with that truth, everything changes. If this resonated, watch the next video to go even deeper.